In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the world, and peace and blessing of Muhammad and his family, and the companions and those who follow us until the day of judgment. So, today I'm going to start for the first time the four basic skills, whether you are teachers, how to teach this skill. So, and whether you are learners, have to know how to learn this skill. So, I'm going to start today from the four basic skills of English language from listening skills. How you can listen, how you can accept those who are, how you can receive information from the people, how you can receive the information from listening. So that in this chapter, the first chapter is the listening skill. So I'm going to start with it. So in this skill, we will explore three steps. So listening, this chapter or this unit, the unit of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So I'm going to start with listening skills. In this chapter, I'm going to just speak about listening skills. So in this chapter, we will explore, after this chapter has been finished, you have to know the listening process, listening skills, and listening in the classroom. So let's come to see what are the listening process. So we listen for a very wide various of things. We will listen for many objectives. We are not listening for just to understand the language. We just listening for many activities or for many objectives that we're listening for. For instance, we will what someone says during a conversation. We listen for what someone says during a conversation, face to face or on a telephone. When you are in a telephone with someone, you have to listen very carefully. Secondly, announcement, giving information for what? For example, for an airport, for a railway station, just specific information about the place, about the weather forecast on a radio. You can listen just for weather in a radio. This is for information, right? So we can listen for a play on a radio. Just if there is a play, you can listen in a radio. We can listen to music for entertainment. We also can listen for someone else for conversation, for everything. We can listen for lecture. If someone giving a lecture, we can listen. This is also called what? Process of listening. A professional advice, for example, the doctors in the bank. When you are patient, when you went to the doctor, you can listen. You can listen what the doctor says. When you get into the bank, you want to withdraw money. You can listen. You can listen for what the people saying. You can listen also for direction. When you don't know the place, you can ask for someone, where is the place? I need to go to this place for such place. You will listen, and then the speaker will say. You can also talk for a dialogue in class. When you are in class, you can listen also. What we listen to come for a variety of sources. For example, other people in TV, radio, CD, videos, DVD, cassette, internet, and the telephone. You can just listen for a very wide variety of things that you need listening. They are the listening process when you are listening. So listening also for general idea or guess. When someone says something, you have to guess. You have to listen for general ideas. In listening, there's also called something. You don't have to listen for the whole. You don't have to take the whole talk as an important. You have to listen for a purpose. Just if you want someone says for example in a telephone, and he directing you to the place in a direction, you have to listen carefully for all the things that he says. But for general idea, maybe for entertainment, you are listening for entertaining, yes, a kind of entertainment. There are also different between listening for information, and listening for enjoyment and social reasons, and listening for to learn a new language. For example, if you listen for a friend giving the instructions about how to get to their new home, you would want to listen carefully all the details and possibly note them down. For example, you can when your friend calling you, for example, to direct you in a new place, you have to listen all the details, all the things details. You have to listen very carefully because you are going to go to a new place you don't know it. Maybe you can write down the places. If you are listening for a friend talking about their holidays, you would listen normally. It's not you cannot listen very carefully here. When your friend talking about their holidays, you have to listen normally, not important. You don't have to take all the details, right? You can just listen normally. You would listen for the general meanings, probably focusing on anything or particular interest or contrast. If you were listening to radio play, and you would probably listen for enjoyment. When you listen for a radio, and you can listen for just entertaining yourself, for just entertainment, you can listen not very carefully here. It's normally. And this difference of kinds of listening are similar to all ages. If a children are being told how to make something, for example, puppet, they would listen to everything they are told. If they are listening to someone telling a story, they will be listening for guest enjoyment. Even the kids, even those who are little ages, those who are young, if you are telling them about how to make something, they will listen very carefully because they want to make something. So if you are telling them a story, they will just listen for a guess to how is it enjoyment, is it they are listening for just entertainment, for enjoyment they are listening. For the learners, listening is how spoken language became input. For those who are learners, the learners, listening is of how spoken language becomes input. First stage of listening the new language. In the classroom, it's happening through listening to the other. If you are a learner, if you are going to learn a new language, you have to know how listening process of how listening skills or how spoken language became input. So those are let us see the listening skills. Right now we know the purposes or the process of listening skills, so that we are going to know the listening skills. Learners need to develop their following skills. For the learners, those who are learning the new language, those who are receiving a new language, they have to listen for a variety of ways. For example, adapting new ways to listen accordingly to the text and the reason for listening. Recognize for the features of spoken English, using visual, textual clues to help them. Listening activities, asking for repetitions, clarifications, etc. Developing their background knowledge. If you are a learner, if you are going to learn a new language, you have to listen very carefully. You have to listen for many reasons, for a variety of ways, recognizing the features of spoken language. You have to know what are the features of the spoken language in order to get the listening skills, and that you can be able and easily to communicate, to listen and to ask for repetition. If you don't know something, you have to repeat. You have to ask for repetition. So as we have seen, we listen for different ways, adapting on what we are listening and why we are listening. Learners also need to develop these skills. At the same time, they should use clues they have around them to help them understand what someone is saying. If you are listeners, you have to listen for the clues. What are they saying? in order to understand what you are listening for. So if you are learners, you have to listen in a classroom, for example. Let us see in listening in the classroom. When you are practicing listening in the classroom, it's helpful to think about how we listen in real life. We should try to ask learners to do things in classroom which they would be likely to do outside, giving them the information they would have in real world, for example, about the context. If the learners need to, if you want to tell them, you have to give them information about the context, and you have to give them the opportunity to listen actively, and you have to give them the opportunity to listen in different ways. You have to give them, the learners, opportunity to listen range of situations, accents and topics. You have to give them the topics and opportunities in order to test the range of situations and accents. What kind of accent do they use? And for specific informations, for details, for guests, and so on. This also, when we do use more authentic material at lower level, we can make to task that we ask the learners to do the easier. For example, if you ask our learners to listen, to a discussion, we could simply ask them whether the speaker agrees or not. Right? So a higher level, we would ask more detailed questions. What do they disagree about, and why? And what do they what do they agree about, and why? And so on, such kind of questions. So listening activities, we can also plan for 3 stages. We can plan for listening for 3 stages. What are they? Pre-listening. What do we mean by pre-listening? Pre-listening, that means activities which help the learners to prepare for what they will hear. You have to prepare yourself. What are you going to hear about? What are you going to receive? Secondly, listening. Pre-listening, listening. In listening activities, which actually types or tasks, for example, filling in chart, answering questions, following a route on a map, thinking notes, etc. Listening, that means during the conversation, during someone's talking, while they are talking, you have to ask the questions, you have to answer the questions, you have to draw a circle, for example, you have to ask the following question tips, like such kind of questions. And the last one is post listening. Post listening, that means after the lectures, after the activities which has been chanced. I chart and check learners' understanding, to check the learners understand. What do they understand from the listening? What do they get from the listening? What do they have been listening to? Giving feedback, and also what do they have learned? What do you get from the listening? What do you understand from the listening? Pre-listening stage. These activities will help the learners focusing on attention on the topics, activities, discussing topics, types, conversation with learners. In the pre-listening, the stages, which are 3, pre-listening, listening, and post-listening. Pre-listening, that means listening before the activity. Listening, that means during the conversation or during the lectures that you are asking or answering the questions. And post-listening, that means after you have listened, you have to ask the questions. What do you get? What do you understand from the listening? This is the listening skills. Listening skills is very important. You have to know how you can listen. Listening for much. There are also many kind of activities that you are listening for. So in a summary, this is the chapter we saw that listening is a wide variety of texts. We also saw that listening and texts we use in class can be more or less authentic, and what they can gradually introduce more authentic texts at lower level if the grad activities are opportunities. Learners need to learn how to listen actively and possibly for gist or detail, gained information or for enjoyment, and how to decode what do they hear by developing an understanding of the features of spoken language. Listening skills is a very important, very simple activity that you can listen very good. For example, in a junior, you have to plan. You have to make a plan for listening skills. You have to set a plan how you can listen, how you can develop your listening skills. Listening skills. If you develop your listening skills, you can understand the native speakers easily. Easily, you can get all the informations, whether they are speaking for general information, or whether you are speaking from the weather, or whether you are speaking for general details, for directions, for enjoyment. They are in the listening process. You can get all the whole things easily. So by here, you have to just put a plan to how you can listen in your daily life. For example, in a day, how many times that I have said them in order to listen the language, in order to get the new language. Listening is just not for receiving a new language. Listening for many purposes, that which I have mentioned them in the beginning of the lecture. So listening skills is very important. Skills that we have from the 4 skills that right now we know, the listening skills and the process. And the next lecture will be about the speaking. After you listen, you have to speak. You have to say what you have got from the listening, what you have got from the last lecture, what you have got from this lecture. That it could be in the coming lecture. So thanks very much for watching and for keeping watch. So see you in next lecture for the second unit. That could be speaking skills. Thanks very much. See you later.